This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everybody. I'm John Green. I'm the chairperson of the Housing Committee for Community Board 11 in Manhattan. Welcome to the March meeting of the committee. Today is March 7th, 2023. And the call this meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. But before we begin and go any farther, I should say, there's a few rules. It says no one may speak until granted the floor. Community board members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. Those of you on the board, you know where all this stuff is. You could probably do this in your sleep, but they'll go at the participants icon. The participants panel should be there. If you have any problems or you can't access it, please let Ms. Pierre know, and she will try. She will do her best to help you. Next, the chat function should not be used for community board business. If there are any questions or if you want contact information from anyone who is speaking, that's fine. But all discussion should be made in public, because this is a public meeting, and that's why we do this. Everything's supposed to be above board. Okay. The chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having. Says, please keep your questions and comments brief and to the point. No going off topic, please. We'll try to keep the meeting moving as quickly as possible. To members of the public, if you have a question or a comment about anything on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and wait to be recognized. Okay, next. Okay, we call the meeting to order. And Marlene, if you will call the one thing, Marlene. Two people called in and asked to be excused. Raja Flores and Jason Wu.
Okay.
Okay. So if you
May I call the roll?
Yes, please.
Okay. Juhad Chowdhury. Diane Collier.
You hear me, Marlene? Good.
I hear you now. Thank you. Brandon Gillespie.
Here.
John Green.
Here.
Alonzo Johnson. Beverly Pabon.
Present. Shalom.
Claudia Perez.
Here.
Dawn Sanders.
Here.
Anne Marie Vasquez.
Here.
Candy Vives Vasquez. And Jason Wu is excused. I didn't say on the record, Roger Flores is excused. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Marlene. The agenda was sent out in advance, and it's available on the community board's website. If there are no objections, we will adopt the agenda. Are there any objections from members of anyone on the committee? Seeing no hands, the agenda is adopted. Okay. February minutes, same thing. If they will be sent out on the community board website. If there are no objections from the committee, the February minutes will be adopted. I don't see any hands there either. So the February minutes are adopted. Next. Okay, announcements. Mayor Adams issued Emergency Executive Order 339, which extends the emergency declaration for 30 days through March 21st, 2023, which means for the next 2 weeks, we're allowed to have Zoom meetings and, and depending on when they do, they'll let us know in 2 weeks if this is going to be extended for another 30 days. So stay tuned in for any additional updates. Okay. Okay. Public hearing and comment period on the formation of the proposed 2023 annual action plan and the citizen participation plan. One, a 30-day public comment period is scheduled for Thursday, March 9th, 2023 through Saturday, April 8th, 2023. And two, an in-person and virtual hearing will be held on Wednesday, March 15th from 6 to 7 p.m. And if that's all, there's more. Oh, no, there isn't. Okay. Okay. Are there any announcements
I'm sorry, John. This is a separate announcement. That's two separate announcements. This is an additional one for your announcement section.
No, it looked very similar. Thank
Right.
you, Mark. Okay. Oh, next announcement: public hearing and comment period on the home-ARP allocation plan. A 15-day public comment period on the home ARP allocation plan is scheduled for Thursday, March 9th, 2023 through Friday, March 24th, 2023. And a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, March 15th from 6 to 7 p.m. Okay. And I believe that's all the announcements. Are there any announcements from the, yes, Beverly? If you're talking, Beverly, you're still muted.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Chair. In regards to item B and C of announcements, we can get information from what other source as to what these are?
I believe that the links will be sent by from the board office within the next day or two. Is that correct, Marlene?
Yes.
Okay.
So the links will be sent to you. Thank you, Marlene. Are there any other questions? Are there any other announcements from the committee? New hand or Beverly or?
A new hand.
Okay. Okay.
I believe I can make this at this time for announcement. I have been working with Jessica Morris to try to do a tour, redesign the red line. And I do have a flyer and date for several dates for that coming up this month. Technically, I don't know how to show it, the flyer, but I do have it on my computer right now, and it is in, I believe, the shared documents. And it's open for all the board's members or, everyone on Community Board 11 to attend. Like I say, it's 3 different dates. One of them is on, hold on, let me just see if I can, Marlene, is there any way I can show my screen to show it, or you'll just give out the information?
I can send it along for you. If you send it to the board office, I'll be sure to send it to the committee on your behalf.
Okay, I appreciate it because I would be totally lost on how to show it. But to give you a heads up, the community board dates will be Wednesday, March 22nd and March 29th, both at 6 p.m. And then the design, the Red Line also has a community tour that they do on Saturday, and that's scheduled for March 25th, 2023, one at 11 a.m. and one at 1 p.m. So you have those 2 dates, the 22nd and 29th, where we're asking all the community boards, even electives, I don't know how we can do that, for them to come on any one of those dates. Above on the flyer, there is a login link for you to log in and pick the date that you want to go on for the 29th, the 29th, the 25th, and the time periods. So if you can, once we get the information sent to you, Just let us know if you have any difficulties, but you can sign up for it. And I'm looking forward to being there for at least the 22nd and 29th, not the Saturday one, and have a discussion with this great exhibit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Beverly. Are there any other announcements from members of the committee? Okay, seeing no hands. Are there any announcements from members of the public? Okay, seems like there's none. Okay, well, Ms. Ramos.
Hi, yes. I was just wondering, are the tours open to regular community members as well? Would there be a day for that?
Beverly, you know that better than I do. So if you could answer that young
Yes.
lady's question.
Yes, it's open to everyone. All members of the community. I implore you guys to go and check it out. It's at the Barnyard College at Columbia University. It's open to everyone. You can come on the dates that we have, the 29th and the 22nd, where I'm hoping members from the community board will be attending, so we can be there together and ask questions and do this tour together. It's very interesting. And on Saturdays, anybody can go. It's for the whole community. I believe Barnyard does one once a month for communities to members and residents to come to it. So it's open to everyone, absolutely everyone.
Okay, thank you for the information. That's awesome. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Beverly. Okay, next informational updates. I don't have any, but yes, Dawn. Dawn, if you're talking, you're still
Sorry
muted.
about that. You're right. At some point in the meeting, because I got some questions on the street about applying to be on the community board. I guess this is just it would be an informational update if we were saying what the deadline was for people to apply. And then also, can't people join housing committee as like a member of the public, or does anybody have any information on that? Like what's that called when you're,
Public members.
Public members.
Yeah, yes. I believe that the process that you apply directly through the board office, and the decision is made by the board.
Okay.
If I'm correct, Marlene, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No.
A public member applies through the chair. The chair has the privilege to appoint. And a full member applies through the borough president's office.
And that's this month, right?
Yes, it is.
I believe the deadline is next Friday, I believe.
Yes, the 17th. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, there are no informational updates that I have anyway. Are there any informational updates any member of the committee has? Okay, seeing no hands, are there any informational updates from members of the public? See, I hear crickets there too. Okay, moving right along. Okay, first, continued discussion on the New York City Housing Authority's Permanent Affordability Commitment Together program and Central East Harlem Scattered Sites designation. On January 19th, 2023, NYCHA, in partnership with resident leaders, announced the selection of a development team to comprehensively modernize a collection of 10 residential buildings in Central and East Harlem. We will get a brief presentation by Elsie Encarnacion from the Office of Deputy Speaker Diana Ayala, and as many of you know, she was a former member of CB11. Elsie, are you ready? Are you present?
I'm ready. I'm present. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I can. So,
Oh,
so
perfect.
the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chair. So as the chair mentioned, I am Elsie Encarnacion. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Chief of Staff to Deputy Speaker Diana Ayala, but I am a community board member at heart. I served for 7 years, about 7 years on the community board, and was a part of many committees, housing being one of them at one point or another during that 7 years. And so I know too well the amount of commitment, time and energy that you guys give to this board. And so, you know, much kudos to that. I did attend last month's housing committee meeting. The council member also attended, so she had the floor. But I did hear during that meeting some conversations around NYCHA, the RAD Pact, and some questions and concerns that were brought up. So I reached out to John, I reached out to Marlene, and I just wanted to offer myself to come here and kind of give some information. We have been a part of a lot of the conversations. We've been attending the meetings with the residents. We've also had meetings with some of the people that have been designated to manage these entities and these developments. So I just wanted to kind of lend myself as a resource. They were kind enough to allow me to come in. I know that one of the concerns and one of the questions that was raised last month was around the original group that was designated to be a part of the RAD Pact and whether or not they had the opportunity to vote. The residents had opportunities to vote into that program. I believe it was Claudia Perez who mentioned that they did not have that process. They were not able to vote during that process, and she was right. I wanted to confirm that they were not given a formal process in which they could choose whether or not they wanted to be a part of the RAD Pact program. The caveat there was that resident leaders in a lot of those developments were given presentations. They were approached by NYCHA officials to give them kind of like, this is what RAD Pact is, this is what your development will be, you know, getting if you decide to be a part of that program, kind of to understand if they were amenable to that. Subsequently, there was like a meeting where all of those development leaders, right? I don't know the level of engagement that happened with the whole resident body of those developments, right? We're talking about the people that are a part of the leadership there at those developments. They all came together, and NYCHA then answered some of those questions that they had, the concerns that they had, you know, will my rent go up? Who's going to take over? What's this process look like? You know, what are my rights? What are my, those questions were asked. The council member was present during that meeting. And so it happened, you know, but in terms of a formal process to vote, that did not take place during that first round of designations. And so the projects that are in the program now and that are going through the process now and are in different stages of that process are going through the process of being, so let's describe the process, right? So the process is essentially, like we mentioned, NYCHA designated, and these are smaller developments, right? We're talking about very small unit counts in these developments, and I can go over exactly which developments we're talking about if you're interested to know which ones that are in our catchment area in our district. They're pretty small units. I believe the largest unit count for one of the buildings is just shy of 500 units. So they're pretty manageable developments. There was an RFP process, which is a request for proposal that went out to identify a developer, a management company, and then there's a social service component as well. But most of the teams have not identified the social service component because that's a process that they're going to engage with the tenants to find out what the tenant needs are in that particular development, and then they're going to find a social service component to provide those services. They go through the RFP process once a team has been selected by NYCHA, right? They are then brought to the residents and they go through what is called the community planning and engagement process. I believe 2 of the groups that are in our district are currently in the community engagement, the community planning and engagement phase. And that's where NYCHA, alongside the people who were chosen to be the new managers and developers for that development, will come and they will speak directly to the residents. And now this is a whole resident meeting, right? People should be knowing about this, flyers should be going out, information should be told to them about when those meetings are happening. They come to those meetings, that's where they're asking their specific questions, they're identifying their needs for the rehabilitation, their priorities for those things, they're communicating, asking questions and concerns. And then they go through the rehabilitation process, which is part of the conversion, right? And then that's when the construction happens, the upgrades are done, and that is essentially the process for the RAD Pact and the developments that we have. To name the developments, we do have 335 East 111th Street. They are in the rehabilitation process. There's active construction going on in that building right now as we speak. There is what is known as the Wilson Consolidated Group. I believe that's Metro North, Wilson, and I think White as well. Also pretty small developments. We're talking about 275 units, 200 units. And then there's the Jackie Robinson, which is the one up here on the, was that the one that was up here? Well, it was up here last week. The Jackie Robinson scatter site developments, which consist of, in our district, there's more, but for our district, it's Corsi, it is the UPACAs 5 and 6. And so they have been already designated as well, and they are in the community in planning and engagement phase. Let's see, what else can I tell you? I don't know, do you have any other questions? I'm here as a resource. I'm not a NYCHA representative. I do not work for the New York City Housing Authority, nor am I here to represent them or their interests. But I just wanted to, confirm that that is absolutely true, what was said, with the caveat of the fact that the leadership did have prior knowledge and conversations with NYCHA before being selected as one of the developments to be part of RAD Pact.
Okay. Thank you very much, Elsie, for that update. Are there any questions from the committee? Before I can even get out my mouth. Okay, Dawn and then Beverly.
So thanks so much for your presentation. I had a question about 335 East 111th. I thought that was Jefferson House's annex, and I didn't think they had a TA president specific to Jefferson Housing Annex.
Yeah, so the process is going to have them create this group, right? They need to create that there. The council member and I just toured that development. I should also say that we had a development go through the whole process in the Bronx portion of our district. So we saw good practice there through the whole process there, the community engagement that was there, the quality of living for the people that were going through construction and how they went through it. And it was a pretty good level of we were really happy. The residents were really happy what happened there. So when we did our pop-up of 335 East 111th, we knocked on doors, we talked to the tenants, we saw the things that were going on. And we heard some of their concerns and we saw the difference, right? And so that we're not saying that was perfect and they do need to be more organized. We've asked that they have more resident meetings and more communication there, and that they continue to provide a level of quality of life for those tenants while they're going through the construction. Because, there's dust everywhere which happens with construction, right? But we want to make sure that they are going through it in the right way. So we want to make sure that we're constantly on top of that, and we have another tour, and it's going to be a pop-up tour, right? To go and make sure that that's happening and that the communication with those tenants are happening, which we weren't sure that it was happening at that point, to the expectation that we have for what they should be doing. So we're on it. Yeah, we're on it, and we're trying to see. We've gone to the community meetings for Wilson. Maggie McDermott, which most of you know from our office, attended the Wilson meeting. I attended the Corsi one. We're going to continue to attend the ones for these developments and keep an eye and make sure that residents have their voices heard, that they're able to say that, see how many residents are at these meetings, you know, making sure that the engagement stays high, and that people know what's going on. And that doesn't always happen, right? So we have to make sure that that happens.
I hear you. Thank you. I guess I'm just concerned that there might be a strategy to pick off these annexes or pieces of developments that have already strong leadership. So I heard that that might have happened over at, oh, you know what? I don't want to drop any development names.
Okay.
TAs aren't here, but I'm worried about annexes being pulled, like picked off, and annexes that haven't never been organized being picked off and kind of asked, what do you want to do? But they don't have the benefit of like a TA president or any kind of organization outside of like the Jefferson House, right? So
Yeah.
that was my concern. And I don't know if Ms. Perez, I mean, I don't know what the word on the street is, right? Because I've heard that some of the smaller annexes didn't really want to stand up to NYCHA, whereas maybe a larger development might have said, hey, wait, I want to see things differently. And that person might have, you know, more leeway.
The
So
smaller developments are really chosen because they're easier to manage, right? If you're bringing in a private developer to come, I mean, a private management company to come in to manage, it's not feasible for like a Wagner, right? There's like that's huge, right? So we're talking about these small things, but I see and I hear your point about this this feeling that you're getting that it's targeting, right? And so we want to make sure that those things are brought up, right? We have to hear those things to know and really address them. But from what I understand, it was about unit size and being manageable for those repairs to be done in those buildings.
Okay. Thank you very much. Beverly?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Elsia, for the presentation. Good to see you again in your different position. I want to bring back a time where in May, I believe, of 22, there was a gentleman named Mr. Marquez Jenkins that did a presentation that was against the PAC and RAD. And he was he had very great information about why he didn't want, you know, some of the people didn't want this happening. And one of the things that you spoke about is that, you know, the information of whether or not the tenants or the residents had the right to vote, whether they really wanted this or not, and being informed enough to say yes or no. I want to know if he is still engaged. I can't remember the name of his organization, but he was very vocal and he had very great facts as to why these buildings should not be turned over to the PAC and RAD programs. I just want to know whether or not if he's still involved or that organization is still involved with these decisions and I guess mobilizing the tenants with the information that they have, so they have something to weigh against what RAD and PAC is telling you. My other question is regard to how long does these managing companies get to manage these properties? Because I know with under HPD, when they usually have, they given managers a jurisdiction to manage properties, they usually give them a time period like 30 years or something like that. I wanted to know whether or not it, you know, do they get a time period and the tenants will be able to say, oh yes, we want to keep you for another 30 or something, or get rid of them altogether or self-manage themselves, and get the financing that they can use in order to make these repairs, because it's always been about financing. So Mr. Marcus was a lot of great points to the table regarding what it would take to manage these, to fix these problems that was not done by mismanagement, no funding. And the more I do the research and redlining, it's just almost like the same thing. they make these, this investment to these properties and then come up with this new deal to, put money in it, but under different hands. So, again, my question is if that organization is still a part of it, and how long, do they have a time period or how long they get to manage these properties? And the other thing is, what is a small buildings to manage? Because 200 or 300, 400 seems kind of a lot of units, I wouldn't call that small, and if they got several of them, even 1,000, that's to me is kind of large, a large portion of them managing those properties. Thank you.
No problems. So I am unfamiliar with Mr. Jenkins, but I'm pretty sure if he was a part of it, he probably still is. There are a lot of groups that are coming and engaging with tenants as they should. Tenants should be hearing from everyone about what the facts are, what the intricacies are, learning from other people. So, and people who may have had more deeper involvement with the program in the past or have opinions about it. They, that's within the tenant's right to hear that, but I just don't know personally if he is still involved, but he may be.
Okay.
In terms of long-term leases, yes, they're long-term leases that they have. NYCHA remains the owner of these properties. And so there is a mechanism built in where tenants, if they are unhappy, unsatisfied with the quality of management that they are getting from the management, they can commence a process to either have it replaced, removed, and looked at as something. And we're not talking about like small things that come up and issues with your management office, right? But we're talking about if the whole building is coming together and saying like, this is not working for us, they're not listening to like whatever it is, right? The nightmare situation that we're thinking of, there is a process by which they can have that removed because NYCHA is remaining the owner of that property. And when I say smaller units, I mean comparably, right? Like we're talking about Wagner. Wagner has like 2,200 units, right? 2,200 units. Sorry. So, yeah, apartments. So those are huge. Like that's a big development, right? That is huge when I'm talking about it's in comparison to, right? But you're right, they're not tiny little buildings with 6 units or 12 units in them or walk-ups, like they're decent size, but in comparison to the portfolio that NYCHA has, and some of these developments are huge, that is what I meant by small.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Thank you. And piggybacking on Elsie's statement, I believe Washington Houses has like close to 2,000 apartments in it. I believe that it's close to 2,000. Yeah. So that's a huge development. So, but I'm sorry.
This is Claudia. If I may, we have 1,518 units in Washington Houses.
See people keep me on my toes here. Thank you so much. Xavier, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm just managing the kiddos. I'm on my own until tomorrow. So thank you for presenting. I've been briefed on a lot of this and I've seen the evolution of it, which is a couple of the issues with Brian Honan brought up, that the carryover fiscal year to fiscal year, as it transitions, they'll get that one credit for HUD as they transition to the next year, as they convert over into Section 8 during the RAT PAC development. I think a lot of people that have had the developments done, or the renos, if you will, completed, there have been complaints, and that ability to have oversight by the tenants has not been met forcefully enough. And I think that's why there's such a great concern as this is being, as one tenant shared, and again, Marquise has been not shy with his criticism of it, is bulldozed is one of the terms that have been bandied about, not my words. I think that the reservation, especially when it's considered that this was for all of those homes or those buildings that were acquired during the 70s when Bronx was burning, these are the tenement buildings that were put into the NYCHA portfolio. And we understand those, but it's the others that, again, when it comes to the tenants' participation in voting, there are still those concerns because it's not representative of those that turn out. And I think there is a hesitation for participation from the residents when they don't believe their voices will be heard. And that's obviously a greater comment on the social construct of democracy, but we're seeing it play out forcefully here within NYCHA. So I think what protective guards will put in place to maximize participation. Two, what protections will be put in place in case those managing agents are not able to fulfill the needs of the residents. When again, in comparison to what we've seen with complaints and them not being considered holistically.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, NYCHA has their set processes for those protections, right? They come inside. A lot of them are protected under federal law because they're still under NYCHA. But that's part of like our role too, right? Like our role is making sure that when we're hearing from the tenants and we're seeing or we're physically going to those meetings, like how many tenants are here compared to how many tenants should be here? Have they gotten flyers on their doors? Like, were they aware of this meeting? Like, those are the questions that we're asking, and we're having communications with NYCHA or with the partner moving forward, right? Saying this is not enough, you need to do more. We're having conversations with the partner. I believe we had one set with Ascendant, who was taking over for the Jackie Robinson scatter sites, I believe, well, part of the team on Friday, just to talk about that, right? And to talk about what we've been hearing from the tenants and putting that pressure on them, right? As an added layer of making sure that the tenants have their voice heard. I'm not here to defend NYCHA at all, or to say that tenants should trust this process at all, right? That's not my role here. I just wanted to talk about the actual process and what it looked like. And, you know, tenants have every right. They've been through a lot to feel distrust in the system. They've been let down for a very long time. So they have every right to ask those questions and to feel however it is that they feel. And if they're against it, then they should, you know, be a part of it. The process has changed a little bit now, but that first round did not have voting. It just didn't, you know, and they are now part of this process because of that. So moving forward is about how we change that, right? Because that has to be changed. So from what I heard, there is going to be a voting mechanism for the RAD Pact moving forward for residents, right? But what does that look like? What does that process look like for them? What percentages of the votes have to come out? Those questions have to be answered before, you know, we feel comfortable with that, and before any tenant should feel comfortable with that, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think we're all in alignment there, but I guess my question is,
but if nobody's holding them accountable or watching them, and we don't use our voices in those places, then tenants will not get the support that they need from the community. So you guys, us, like, that's what we have to do.
Okay, so real quick follow-up. Metrics, what metrics will be employed on that?
Oh, I was about to call Beverly, but I'm not sure if it's good.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Did we lose him? Oh no, he's here.
What metrics
can hear
will be
you.
employed? Yeah. So what metrics will be
No,
employed?
we can't hear you. I don't know if you're, am I not hearing anyone?
John,
Xavier,
can you hear me?
question. Yes, I can hear you, Xavier.
Oh, I
Yeah,
don't
what
hear you
metrics will
guys.
be
Hold on.
employed to that end?
But
Hello?
The chair is
Okay.
asking what metrics are going to be employed.
My headphones picked it up. I could hear you a little bit, and I was wondering why. Sorry, I hear you now.
Happens all the time. What metrics?
I
will be-
was looking, I'm like, I hear you very tiny, but it was my headphones were on the table. Sorry.
That's okay. Just a little tiny cricket moment here. What metrics will be employed to that end then for measuring turnout and participation?
By NYCHA, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, I don't think that they have a metrics in that sense. They do the outreach. Who shows up, right? I'm talking about is when we show up at meetings, what we're looking at in the room and what we're seeing. You know, if we walk into a room, there's 3 people there. That's just not enough residents for us in terms of, you know, for us. But that they have an attendance sheet that they say, okay, we have 50% of the residents come out to the meetings. I don't think that is something they have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Beverly, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Elsia, when you just speaking, you stated that the first round, the residents really didn't have any voting. And so is there any documentation as how many units that first round of units that went into the PAC or the RAD, how many units in our community? And going forward, what processes have they made to make um, it available for tenants to vote on this time?
Yeah, so I can give you a breakdown of the units in terms of the sites in our district. I know there's 66 units at 335 East 111. In Metro North, there's 275 units. Wilson is 398. White has 248. Corsi has 171. Upaca's 5 and 6 combined have 350, 150 in one development, 200 in the other. And so that would be the total units for the East Harlem RAD PAC piece. When I spoke about voting moving forward, from what I understand, and again, not a NYCHA representative, but from what I understand, when they were talking about this vote that we were talking about for the trust, whether tenants wanted to be a part of the trust or not, there was originally like you can either vote trust, vote no trust, and then NYCHA added or RAD PAC, going through the RAD PAC development. And so that's what I was talking about with now residents being able to vote on one of those, either trust, no trust, or the RAD PAC, which was added by NYCHA, not by Albany, but it's there.
That's a lot for them to a lot of things for them to look into or to get information on, because it's such a short time period for them probably to decide.
It
And
is,
this is a very complex thing.
It is. And resident leaders have been doing such a good job. Like, we have some really strong resident leaders that have been going out, really talking to their tenants, creating letters, flyers themselves, right? This is not like NYCHA doing it themselves to really inform our tenants. And some of our leaders are really strong and some of them aren't so strong, right? So you're gonna have that, void in some of those buildings, but I have to give it to some of these tenants. Like, we go to Maggie attends a lot of the meetings, and she would tell me like they are talking about it. They're informing their tenants about the trust, about NYCHA RAD. They're having these conversations, and these are tenants doing this. Like, this is really and leaders like figuring out. They're going into the websites. They're gathering information and bringing it to people, which is
That's
great. But it's a lot. You're right. It is. It's a lot.
Right. And I guess my point for that is regarding what Mr. Jenkins was saying. Why not just put the money in NYCHA as it is? Because they're spending the money anyway. You know what I'm saying? So I know there was a lot of problems with NYCHA with mismanagement and corruption and stuff like that. But to put all of this weight for tenants to decide which program to go into, when you just need to restructure NYCHA and make it and use the money just to fix what NYCHA owns and by right should have done, because the disinvestment was on their part, and
these are new funds that are being unlocked by switching over to Section 8. There's a different funding stream that is kind of unlocked by switching over, so it's more money, and that only happens when you switch over to Section 8, and that goes to private landlords. So it's not Section 9 is for the housing authorities, so we wouldn't have access to that money if it didn't have the switch, which is really unfortunate, but the truth.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I forgot about that portion, and also in the conversation, I haven't heard how much does the private landlords make in these deals. That I
don't know.
I haven't heard anything like what percentage do they get for their management skills? Because believe
Yeah, I
me, they're
mean,
not doing it for free.
right.
So what you know,
Yeah.
you know,
And to be
what do
fair,
they get?
yeah, and to be fair, we have the groups that are managing the Metro North
Mhm.
uh, development along with Wilson and White, and the other development that Jackie Robert did. They're nonprofit organizations that have been serving the community for quite some time. So Ascend and Whole Community, we know them well. They're not, these mega $1 million entities that are coming in. They are neighborhood community-based nonprofit managers that are coming in for that.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Elsie.
Yeah.
Elsie.
Okay, Claudia, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to add that, we who was the person? I know NYCHA put developments into this RAD pact, right? But do we know who is it that made the final decision on it actually going through so rampantly throughout the boroughs? And my second question is, well, it's more of a statement. When I visited the RAD Impact, resident management and home ownership in New Orleans, I believe one of the reasons why they are NYCHA, when I say they, are going after the smaller developments is because they are much easier to fit within the Section 8 mold that they're trying to put them in. And I just wanted to commend Diana's office in creating these groups, because when we speak about it to the residents at our meetings, we are calling the what she's talking about with the management company, the builders and the residents. These are working groups, and this is very important process, because this is where you get to hash out everything with the residents and understanding what their needs really are. So in doing it this way, now the new process, it's very similar to the housing that existed in New Orleans. So when they also say about the vote that's coming to the larger developments, which basically have 900 and more units like Washington houses and such, it's harder to put us within that PAC RAD mold. And so they've developed the trust. But we also have the option when she's saying no trust, it means to us that it means to stay Section 9. That's basically what we're under right now. And one of the things that we're afraid of is if we choose to stay under the Section 9 model, will the representatives still put money, because they're putting money towards public housing, but most of it, even with the mayor, is going to the RAD pack and the conversions. What will still be going into, and will you guys be put? I know we will always receive money. As long as there's Section 9 housing, we will always receive that federal funding from HUD. But where is it that if we choose to stay under Section 9, where is the commitment from the elected officials in trying to get funding to help sustain the Section 9? And that would really open it up towards a choice being made. Thank you. I yield back the floor.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, Dawn.
So unfortunately, I didn't take a look at the agenda, but I did see in the chat that Chris Cirillo was in the chat. I saw Walter Roberts was in the attendees. Maybe we can have some of the chosen groups come and, speak with us a little bit. We can kind of get a feel for them, because those are people I've known for many, many years. Not to say that I'm ready to yield section 8 to section 9, but I would be interested to hear what they have to say, especially given that they've worked with HPD for many years, right? So I'd like to know, you know, what their take on section 8 and how we can make it work. You know, some of those details would be helpful to me, but Chair, I would ask you what you think, but some of the people who were on the call, I think they should be in the agenda at some point soon.
Well, actually, the thing is that Nitro was requested to come in, but it was a last minute request and they could not make it. But as I understand it, they will be here next month. So the thing is that, so if you have any questions for any Nitro representatives, you will be able to ask them at the April meeting. As far as some of the private developers, we can take a look at that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question, please. Just one last question to go for Dawn. Would you also,
Beverly,
yeah.
just one second.
Okay.
Okay, Beverly, just right there. Okay.
Yes, I would ask that you also invite the residents for these developments that's under East Harlem to also be here. You know, we'll hear a great story and could be truthful, you know, from those who's going to be taking over the management. But I want to hear from the residents and the leadership of the residents on them saying, yes, we do want this, because right now we're just hearing from everyone else but them. And the only persons that I've heard opposed to this is Mr. Marcus, and I would definitely like him to be added back to the agenda also for further discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Beverly. Okay, so excuse me. Natasha Robinson, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening. As a tenant of Wilson Houses, my main concern was how everything was kind of like pushed through. I know originally they were going with one property management, and now we're partnering with Hope Community. And I also noticed that it's split with White Houses and Metro North. Like, we're not under the same property management anymore. They're split. And I always was under the impression that we were consolidated. So I was just a little confused about how that process took place, because I know they're under West Crave management, and we're partnered with Hope Community. I was just confused of the separation and what decision was made with the separation.
Okay,
So
Elsie.
yeah, I don't have the answer to that. I know Walter's here on the call, but that is accurate. You guys are under Hope now, and you guys were in what's called the Wilson consolidation. So those things are absolutely right, but I don't know why those decisions were made. Those are made internally in Nitro, maybe through the development process, but I don't know. I couldn't answer it. I can find out though. So I'm just curious now.
Thank you.
Okay, Elsie. Cynthia Ramos, the floor is yours.
Hi, yes, thank you. I had a couple of things to say. I'm a resident of Washington Houses, and the presentation we had in October was from the Residents to Preserve Public Housing. It was RPPH, and that was in October in regards to keeping public housing public, remaining Section 9. There've been several talks about it. I've missed the last 2 Zoom meetings, but I'm in close contact with the president and the housing committee, and they were worried about the voting process, because under the trust, you only needed 10% of the households, and anyone could vote that was 18 or over. So with this nonprofit agency, they wanted at least 66% to meet quorum to vote. And I also wanted to mention that I had the privilege of doing an internship at Batianza's Houses, which was the first RAD conversion in the Bronx, which is managed through Wave Crest Management. So I interned at Catholic Charities because, like I think Elsie mentioned earlier, it will be tied to some type of social services agency, because when you convert to Section 8, you know, it's a whole big difference from Section 9. A lot of the tenants that I worked with Catholic Charities, didn't qualify for Section 8. So they had to pay market value rent and they just couldn't afford it. So that's when the social service aspect came in and we were able to do the ERAT, get them help with the rent. So that was one of the concerns that we have at Washington House is that, a lot of people, it changes everything, and your Section 8 would be project based. You'd have to remain a year here and then ask for a transfer from Section 8. And if approved, then you can take that with you. But the Section 8 is tied to the unit.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Ramos. Are there any other questions? Seeing no hands raised, Elsie, I want to thank you very much for coming in and talking with us and explaining.
Yes, I have something to say, sir. Hello?
Who is this?
I have a question. My hand was raised, but I was waiting for you to call me.
I didn't see your hand raised, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Keith Hewlin.
Okay.
And I have a couple of comments to make. I think the main objective of the RAC PAC, I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, because I've seen out in Queens that there was something like the Rat Pack. I'm not sure if it's called the Rat Pack, but however, it's displacement. There's a displacement there of the residents that live there, and the investment of these corporations being replaced. Well, Niger being replaced by these corporations that invest into these housing projects, and the rent subsidies in jeopardy as well, because a lot of the residents don't have access or may not know of having access to Section 8. So a lot of them not aware that of even NYCHA having Section 9, for instance, certain policies. So the residents are being displaced, and some of it, gentrification is taking place, and privatizing NYCHA, may hinder the livelihood of those who are living in at a lower level in life, or maybe lower incomes. So, I think it should. And another thing is that a lot of the residents don't participate in the meetings that take place, and are not able to understand how this affects them. So I think there needs to be an education around what's going on.
Okay, thank you very much. And any other hands raised? I'm looking. I don't see any.
Cynthia,
Elsie,
Cynthia has her hand raised, John.
I'm sorry?
Cynthia has her hand raised again. Cynthia Ramos.
Okay, floor is yours.
Oh, hi, one more thing. Sorry, I apologize. I'm actually a community ambassador for the East Harlem Community Partnership. And if there is another meeting about this where I can let our President's Association know, I can let them know to join into this meeting so that they can have their input and say, because I know they've been working tirelessly as well on their own with flyers and information. They've been talking with us tenants at Washington Houses, and I'm pretty sure they'd like to be a part of it. So if there's any way to inform me so I can let them know about how they can be a part of any meeting that comes up in the future.
Well, if there's another meeting concerning TACRAD, it'll be on our website, and it's free, open to the public. So because since Nitro will be here next month, we'll probably be talking. We'll be talking about this again next
Oh,
month.
okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Elsie, as I said, thank you for taking the time out and talking with us. It was good seeing you.
Of course, and
And
thank you. And you know, anytime, anything that I can do, I can look up more information. I'm glad that Nitra's coming to your next meeting. Please continue to invite them and you know, use your voices. I'm really proud of the work that's being done in East Harlem by our resident association leaders, informing our tenants and making sure that they're getting the information that they need. You know, they're doing this, you know, out of love for their community. They're not paid, you know, that it's like they're just built in and really care about what's happening and sharing information. So I'm really proud of them, and I'm proud of the housing committee for taking on this topic and having the discussion and bringing it up. And it's up to us, you know, to continue to put and hold accountable NYCHA and throughout this process. And now that we're in it, and then the teams that will be taking over these developments, right? We have to keep an eye on them and make sure that tenant voice is number one.
Yes.
Excuse me, can I say something? Pardon me. Hello?
Yes.
Hi, hello?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I tuned in 30 minutes late to the meeting. I just wanted to say, my name is Miss Glover. I just wanted to say one thing, if you would allow me.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Okay. I hear a lot about the Preservation Trust, a lot about RAD and PAC, but I went to TPA Funds. It's online, and I'm curious to know, why aren't the developments spending the money? If somebody give me $1 million, I'm gonna spend it. We act as if the Preservation Trust, RAD, and PAC is the only thing that's going on right now. Why don't we deal with what's at hand? And we can deal also with what's in the future. But we need to deal with all that cash that's sitting there in TPA funds. Why aren't we spending it? And there's no real conversation going on. And there's no real, I've been coming to these community board meetings. Y'all give me much respect. No, I'm not the president at my development. But it boggles the mind how you have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in TPA funds that HUD gives this money to these developments for their family days, for us to create workshops and write proposals with what do they call those people? You know, you write the proposal with the consultants. This stuff is not happening, and it's like almost being retarded, because the way things are looking, NYCHA, in my opinion, is like the mob. They're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. Whether our tenant leaders are doing what they're supposed to do, whether they're doing what they're not supposed to do, resident engagement, district council presidents, and all that other stuff. These people are not doing their job. They are illegitimate. They're not living up to what they should be doing, and it's costing us, rent-paying tenants. We're not getting the information that we need to get out to our people. And I'm talking black and brown people. We are being dogged out. Our people in this community, in our projects, everybody looks like a criminal. You look at the woman. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna shut up. That sister that got shot in Lenox houses, Lehman, not Lehman, the other one on 135th Street. She heard her neighbor arguing. That woman had to be affiliated with that woman. Ain't no stranger gonna go knock on somebody's door when they hear them arguing. She had to have had an affiliation with those people. And she took it upon herself to knock on that door. And what did that woman's boyfriend do to her? When her husband came over, he shot her in her face, in her chest, in her gut, and she's fighting for her life right now. Where's the mayor? Where's the photo ops? Where's the community outrage? Where's the protests in the streets? And so, as a result, things just get shoved. The can just keeps getting kicked down the block. And what's going to happen? We're not going to be here because NYCHA housing developments are killing fields. All you hear about is us getting murdered all day and all night. So folks can say what they want about me, but I'm about the people. I'm not about management. Because when you become down with management, you're the enemy at this point. When you are a leader, you have the agenda. You can move. I was a president, and I know. I could go to my management and tell her, oh, she see me. Yes, Miss Glover. She stopped are you still there? She stopped everything she was doing and take care of me. So don't tell me that the TAs don't have no juice. They got the juice. That's why they were formed in the 70s. That's the purpose of having a tenant association, to give us a voice. Back in the day, management took care of everything. You throw something out the window, your butt is out of there. We walked past the grass. We had laundry rooms. You could be down in the laundry room all day and all night. Nobody was down there to mess with you. Then crack came. Okay? Mind you, there was heroin everywhere. But crack came and it just destroyed everything. Management abandoned us at that point. So now we are on our own. Are you still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
You know, we got mega rats running around. My building, I even got the rats in my apartment now since Monday. You go to management, they promised me, they said, listen, Ms. Glover, would you like a transfer? Is what they told me. Okay? I wasn't going to share that with nobody. I would keep that to myself. Why you don't want me to stay where I'm at? Now they offering me a transfer. Okay? So we need to stop playing with ourselves and get real, because the ball is in our court. A lot of our tenants don't know squat about what's going on. COVID came, a lot of the tenant leaders took care of their tenants as far as giving them food, hand sanitizers, all this kind of stuff with my brother Cuomo. Okay? They took care of all of that. COVID is gone now to a large degree. We are, some developments have their community centers and some don't. But being a tenant association, you can meet anywhere in the grass or whatever, because you got all this money sitting up there. You could buy tents. You could do all this kind of thing here. I'm not going to go on and on and on because I believe I made my point. But I thank God for the Community Board 11, how I'm always available to be able to come and talk. We got to stop playing with ourselves and get real. Our men are dying in the streets. They're shooting up our women. And I'm speaking about my people, because I don't see other people speaking for my people. So I have to speak for my people. And I'm going to tell you something else, too. I don't hate nobody. I don't care what happened in the past. We gotta kiss all that stuff goodbye. We got to swallow our pride. I'm sorry if I did something. You did something. You need to say sorry. We got to get beyond all that bull. Because what I'm telling you, come spring, come summer, winter, fall, our black tails are not going to be here. Because we dying like flies and there is no leadership. Management done abandoned us, so we know where Nights is coming from. We know where they're coming from. Spend some of that TPA money. Get it out of there. And a lot of us don't even know. I really don't even know what's the status of it now, because I'm a former president. Back then, it was $290,000. What's the status? There wasn't a card back then. You didn't have a debit card back then. So I'm gonna close with this. TA associations, let your tenants know about that money. Let them know that you could be spending it. Have that sucker spent by next year. Don't keep sitting on it, because you're not going to be held accountable as long as you got your receipts and everything. It's not like you got nothing to worry about. Start letting people know what's going on. And one thing, too, a lot of tenants don't get involved. It's just for decades. It's nothing new. A lot of people, I asked the lady yesterday, do you care about where you live? She threw stuff in the street and everything, and all she cared about is all the degrees that she getting. But I'm in college, I'm getting ready to get my BA, and I'm going to have my AA come in 2 years. All this kind of stuff. She dropped the stuff right in the street, and I asked her, do you care about where you live? You know what she told me? She said, Miss Glover, nope. All I care about is getting my degrees to get the hell out of here, is exactly what she told me. At least she was honest, but I care. I care. I don't have a house in PR or in Uganda or someplace. This is all we got.
Thank you, Ms. Glover.
Yes,
You're quite welcome.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
I just want to ask one question to the lady, if she's still there. I just want to ask one question, and that's what is it? If a tenant is living in NYCHA and the development became privately owned, they switch everything to Section 8. I think she said that. However, how would they get the subsidy? Because I know someone that lives in housing, and they're having a problem getting the Section 8 and being charged 30% of the rent. Is that correct? Is that what it is, 30%?
Yeah, so the first part there about the getting the voucher. So the voucher is attached to the unit. But I think you can be there. I think you have to be there at least 1 year before you can apply to move, and then you have to get approved. So that's a whole process. So there could be some people that were not approved that, you know, for whatever reasons, I can't call, you know, specific reasons. But that is a process. But that first year, it is attached to the unit. It's not, you know, you turn into Section 8, now I have a Section 8 voucher and I can just go and get a Section 8 apartment somewhere else. That's not the case in that development. There's like a whole process by which, and I think you have to be there at least a year, if not more, to even apply for that process.
Yeah,
And
she's been there. She's been there for about for a long time.
Yeah, if you're currently in NYCHA, which is Section 9, and apply for Section 8, that's different than this process. But you know, I understand what you're saying. That's you applying for the Section 8 program. This is the development.
Oh no, she lives in development. She lives in NYCHA, and it was taken over something like by this Rack Pack. It was taken over by one of those corporations. And what happened was that she didn't know actually that Section 8 had taken over, and then they sent her an increase in rent, and then that's when she noticed that they increased the rent, and they said she had to go to Section 8 to resolve that issue. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know her specific, you know, what happened there, but I'm not sure what happened. But that would be the process for that.
Can that call?
Thank you, Beverly.
Yes.
Chair.
Mr. Keith brought up a very interesting scenario. Once the buildings become Section 8, if the residents who are now paying just 30% of their income don't qualify for Section 8, the 30% of their income is no longer on the table. And if they don't qualify for Section 8, they have to start paying market rent or higher rents because they don't qualify for Section 8.
Right. Well,
or any subsidy.
That's correct.
I think somebody spoke to that earlier about the social service component coming in and working with the tenants, but yes, right. And those are the things, right? These are the pieces that I mean, like getting all of the information and knowing all of it and having residents aware of that, right? Because there are a lot of, and the residents have the right to do that directly to NYCHA, directly in those meetings and ask those questions. And maybe they don't know which questions to ask, right? Because they haven't been through that process, which I get as well, right? But we're all learning and trying to put that in front of them as much as possible. And that planning phase, that community engagement, community planning and engagement phase is the time where those questions are asked, which at that point you're already part of the process, right? You're already in the program. But it's about getting those kinks out and getting those answers, quelling those fears, or, you know, confirming if they're fears, which can happen, right?
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking because that does open up the door for displacement.
Well, you know, and the thing is that, right, and there's the other piece, right? Like I see it, and you know, there's a ton of stuff that's talked about, right? Like, oh, the rehabilitation is mainly cosmetic, and it's not like a gut rehab. Like we're still having a lot of the issues, and those things are also true, right? But what we're talking about is that quality of life for those tenants, and some of those people are living in conditions that we're saying like that they were saying like it's just unacceptable, right? In most cases. And so the repairs are there to really address those, right? Hallways, lighting, elevators, boilers, the facade
Right.
of the building, the pointing of the building, so that we can prevent some of those leaks, the roofs, you know, whatever the priority is for that specific development. Those things are important, and they're going to really change the quality of life for those tenants, right? But we do have to think about all the other pieces that we're talking about. I think that's fair, and I think that's part of the process.
And it couldn't be anything where the 30% would still stay in place. You know, because you have people who retired in place and don't have, like you said, don't have the education to know the difference. And if this is happening to one person regarding that they didn't know or didn't participate in it, they can be displaced very quickly because they went into market rent. They don't have enough money. Their income is more than what Section 8 qualifies them for, and it's just going. The 30% should always be something for them to fall back on, as it is. The fact that that's taken out, not knowing for sure whether or not the residents will be able to afford still living in these projects if they don't qualify for Section 8 is very. You know, I have a lot of concerns about that. And I think it's these tools, although I know the dire need for repairs for these projects are dire. I mean, that I understand, and it's due because of this investment and so now you asking the tenants and the residents and the people to make these decisions where they've been, you know, left out of the and not invested in for so long. So now you want them to make these type of decisions and don't have any safety net if they don't qualify for them. And I know, you know, they do some subsidies, but I see this as a form of them disenfranchising and not investing into the community with the redlining. And then here you got this whole group of people. Oh, we're gonna put some money in this other program so you can get there, but they got some hidden agendas in there that's gonna still displace the people. And I don't think any of these now that the city and the state is talking about racial what is it called? Racial
gentrification.
Yeah, but it's another term that they're using now, and I know
Equity.
Yeah, equity and stuff like that, and how these type of programs will, you know, be detrimental to the people who's here because of the race that we are. You know, I know with community board 11, I mean not community board, but the land use is going to now have to think about racial disparities. I think is the term, when they do land use and how it's going to affect the people that's there, because it's only happening in the brown and black communities, you know. So I think in the future we're gonna look back and we're gonna see that even though they're trying to fix these apartments that they didn't invest in for 40 years, a lot of people that sit here, their families, future family, it's not going to be here. We're not going to be here. And they're pushing the idea that, oh, these buildings are such bad shape that we need to do something. And of course, the people want the places fixed, but it's going to come at a cost when we're not going to be here in the future. And I think it's by design, racial design. I'm sorry.
Okay,
thank you.
Okay. Okay, Claudia.
I just have to say, right, in piggybacking off of what my colleague said previously, if you look, and if I'm very interested in the redlining thing, the reason why these developments were put here in the first place was because of redlining. That's how the developments were placed, since we all know about the Robert Moses. Secondly, everybody does not fit within that Section 8 confine in what they're putting in, what they're trying to put the NYCHA residents in, NYCHA families, because I don't want to call them residents because they're families that live in these developments. So at the end of the day, they develop this trust for the larger developments. And in doing so, they're gonna take out bonds. And in order for them to even be able to do the transfer in the trust, you have to understand that we are being put under, like my colleague said, a demolition, meaning that it's incohabitable, and they have to change it over to the trust in order to receive the funding through the Section 8 process. This will cause a lot of displacement in the larger developments because we have mixed incomes when it comes to the developments. You have older people, younger people, middle-aged people, people with families, and thus forward. So it's gonna displace a lot of us. And I asked the board, I had put some legislation in there for it to be read. And my process in saying that is because under that, resident management is under only the Section 9. And not only resident management, you also have the right of legislation backing up the resident councils. When you transfer it over to the Section 8 process, it waters down the legislation of the councils. And that's why the councils are so important, because it has federal legislation that where we are the sole entities in which anybody, even NYCHA dealing with the residents, we have to be involved in that process. For a very long time, the leadership was not involved in that process. The leadership is supposed to be in those management meetings when they're having capital meetings. We're supposed to be in those meetings when they're talking about the budget. We're supposed to be helping them to create the budget for the development and have say so in where the money goes. Because, point an example, if you know that for multiple years, your intercom system has not been working, but you're still paying the company for an intercom system that is not working, why are you still paying somebody for a service that you're not even receiving? That money can be diverted elsewhere. That's just like a little example of what should be happening. And that's why the resident councils and the leadership is pushing back so hard. But if we were under that Section 8 model, we would become like a regular tenant association. And that's why they even changed our names, because we were councils. And if you look in the regulations, it's called councils. Then when you water it down to an association, it takes on a whole different entity then. And I'm just gonna leave it there. But this conversation is something that has to be had more in depth, and residents do need to be here to state what's going on and what they're going through. Thank you, guys. I yield the floor back.
Thank you. Ms. Ramos?
Oh, hi, thank you. I was pretty much going to say what Claudia just said in regards to the income and the tenants here. And it is sad because, you know, there's people from many different income levels, and Section 8 was made for low income. So there's people that have been living in, you know, my development that I've known that said they've lived here over 30 years who are hardworking people who would not be able to afford market rent, even with their salary. They'd barely be getting by, but they'd be overqualified for Section 8. And there's also a lot of residents here that didn't even know public housing was Section 9. Most never even heard of it until these meetings started happening. So I think that it's very important, if everyone wants their voice heard, they need to show up to the meetings. They need to have input, because decisions are going to be made without them. And then, you know, it's really, really hard. But thank you, Claudia, because you said it way better than I did. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ramos. Okay, Elsie, as I said, thank you for for coming in and explaining this to us.
Yeah, and I just
um,
wanted to make one point, if I could, Chair, about the trust. There was 2,700 units, I think, in total that was approved for the trust, which when we talked about units, you know, it's probably like one big development and one small development across the city that will be chosen into the trust, just as a point of reference for the trust conversation that will be selected. It's 2,700 units in total that were approved.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Elsie. No, well, I know I will see you again soon. Okay, so if that's it, what next slide? Okay. Old business. Is there any old business? I hear crickets. No hands raised. Okay, new business. Let's see, no hands raised. And I had more crickets. Okay, Marlene, could you call the roll, please?
Shuhab Chowdhury, Diane Collier, Raja Flores is excused, Brandon Gillespie,
Present.
John Green,
Here.
Alonzo Johnson, Beverly Pabon,
Present, Shalom.
Claudia Perez,
Present.
Dawn Sanders,
Present.
Anne Marie Vasquez,
Present.
Candy Vivas Vasquez, and Jason Wu is excused. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marlene. I thank you. I want to thank the committee for their attention and their comments. I want to thank the members of the public who attended. The next meeting of the Housing Committee will be on Tuesday, April 4th at 6:30 p.m. And depending on what the mayor does, it's either going to be in person or it's going to be via Zoom again, just like this meeting. So I now adjourn the meeting at 8:03 p.m. Have a good night, everybody.
Shalom, shalom. Good